Hi and welcome to this on Maths prediction for the AQA Paper 3 Foundation Tier Maths GCSE. Enjoy! Hi and welcome to this prediction from On Maths for the very last paper. So this is going to be filmed before any of the papers, so please bear that in mind when you watch this. The papers are very condensed, and so it's very difficult to set new videos out. But this paper is still based on all the previous exam paper questions that have come before, including the June and November ones in previous years. And we look at what comes up loads and what has long overdue coming up. Don't also forget you can do this online by clicking here, and it's completely for free, and you can sign up for free and save your scores so you can track your progress with this. On our site it's also the topic busters, which are very focused on specific topics, and there's all the Maths GCSE topics there, so you can practice a specific topic rather than the more generalised. You can also do the revisionator, which will just blast you with random questions. It normally takes about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. So if you've got less time or you want to do something regularly every night, then that's a really good idea. Don't also forget that the online version is random numbers. So the methods and questions will be the same as this video, but the answers will be different, allowing you to do multiple times. If you like this video, please click like. And if you want to see more from us, please click subscribe. Also, just bear in mind that this is a revision tool. Please do all of your normal revision as well. I hope you enjoy this video. So we're asked to shade in 3/6 of this shape. So if I cut this shape into sixths going downwards, we're asked to shade in 3 of them. So 1, 2, 3. Now some of you might realise that 3/6 is the same as a half, so we're shading half of it, and looking at that we've shaded in half of it. Some of you might look at this and change that so that it's 6/12, and there's 12 squares in total, and so we're shading 6 of them. However you do it, it's up to you, but as long as you shade in 6 of the 12 squares. So we're asked for an even cube number. So the cube numbers are 1 cubed is 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. The problem is that that is an odd number, so let's try 2 cubed. Now 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. So 8 is an even cube number. Now you could have also had 64, which is 4 cubed. 6 cubed is above 100, so that would not count. So 8 or 64 are the correct answers. Okay, so when simplifying, it's really important to understand what like terms are. This is an x term, and this is also an x term. This is a y term, and this is a y term. So we're going to add the x terms first, so 13x plus 7x is 20x. And then we're going to add the y terms, so 3y plus 2y is 5y. Now it can be tempting to try and add these together, but these are unlike terms, they're not like terms, so we can't add them together. You can multiply them, so if we times them together it would be 100xy, but when we add them we can't add them. That is our answer. And the place I'd start with this question, since we're going to be asked for the median anyway, is just to put these in order of sides, and that will help us work out the mode and range. You don't have to do it, it's much easier to spot. So the smallest number's 38. Is there another 38? No, the next number's 39. I think there's a few 39s. Okay, the next number's 41. I'm crossing them out as I go so I don't count them twice accidentally. So 42, 43, 44. Now the mode means most. Okay, if you just remember that, mode most, it's pretty much the same word. So what came up the most? Well, if you have a look, there are 3 39s there, and there's two 42s, two 41s, so 39 came up the most. And it's much easier to spot when they're all lined up. The range is the biggest, take away smallest. And again, this is a lot easier when they're all lined up. So it's 44, which is the biggest, take away the smallest, which is 38. Now, I know that you can do this in your head, but use your calculator anyway. Why not? Because this is a calculator question, but we know the answer is going to be 6. Okay, so the median. Now the median is the one that you've got to find the middle one, so it's the middle when in order. And I put that in capitals because most people forget that one who get this question wrong. You have to put them in order of size first, okay? And what you do is you cross out one from both sides, then another one from both sides, then another one from both sides, then another, until you're left with 1 or 2 in the middle. Now if you're left with 2 in the middle, then you add them together and halve it. Or find the number that's halfway between the two. Now if they're both 41, the median will be 41. If you think about it, 41 times 2 is 82, and then halve it, it's going to be 41. Now the mean is, a lot of people call it the mean one. You add them all together and divide it by how many? So I'm going to do this on my calculator. I'm going to do 38 plus 39 plus 39 plus 39 plus 41 plus 41 plus 42 plus 42 plus 43 plus 44. Hopefully I've got the right answer of 408. Over how many there are? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I need to divide that by 10, and I get 40.8 for the mean. Now, I would always double check that, so I'm going to do it again on my calculator, because when you're typing a whole load of numbers, it's always easy to make a mistake, but it's very rare to make the same mistake twice, and it's come up with 408 again, so I know it's probably right. Okay, so we're asked to round to 3 significant figures, so what I'd try and do first is write the number down. Now, with significant figures, we start counting at the start of the number. We don't start counting the decimal point. So I'm going to start counting here. And I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to draw a line down. Now, all the numbers to the right of that line are going to reset to 0. But before they do, we need to look at this number. And this is called our decider number. If that number that I've circled in blue is 5 or more, it means the 7 goes up to 8. If it's less than 5, the 7 stays the same. Now because it is 5, that 7 will go to an 8. Now be careful here, the numbers to the right don't disappear, and some students, when they've done decimal places, they think they just go away. With significant figures, you have to remember that they turn to 0. Now they do the same with decimal places, it's just because they're after the decimal point, we don't need them anymore. But these 3 zeros here are what we call placeholders. So, for instance, if you're asked to estimate the size of a crowd, and there was 207,518 people, you wouldn't say that that was roughly 208 people. You would say that's roughly 208,000 people. Alright, so we're asked to find 8.9% of 457. So first of all, I'm just going to convert 8.9% into a decimal. So this is it as a percentage, and as a decimal, I'm just going to divide it by 100, and you always do that to percentages to find decimals. So 8.9 divided by 100, and that gives me 0.089. And all I need to do is get my quantity and times it by that decimal. So I'm going to times that by 457 equals, and it says 40.673, and it wants it to 2 decimal places, so that's going to be 40.67. When solving, always just write out the question and put down lines either side of the equals. And what we're looking at doing is doing something to both sides so that we get x on its own. So we want to end up with x equals at the bottom. That's when we know we've solved it. So looking at the left hand side, we need to get rid of this 6 here and the take away 6 there. Now we must remove the plus or the minus first, as long as it's not trapped in a bracket or a fraction. So we're going to get rid of the minus 6. To do that, we need to do the opposite of it. So we need to add 6 to both sides. So we're going to end up with 6x on the left hand side, because we've got rid of the minus 6. And we're going to add 6 to that to make 60. Now we want to get rid of the 6 before the x. Now that's a times 6. When you put a number next to a letter, it's a times. So to get rid of it, we need to divide 6. So we're going to end up with x on the left hand side, and 60 divided by 6 is 10. So the answer is x equals 10. Didn't need that much room in the end, and that's it. It's important that we're comfortable with converting between ratios and fractions. So having a look at this question, there's red on the first one is 8 and blue is 17. So for every 8 red there are 17 blue. And it's asked us for the fraction that are blue. So there are 17 blue, so 17 goes at the top of the fraction, but how many are there all together? And so it's tempting to put 17 over 8, but it's all together. The bottom of a fraction is the total, so we need to do 8 plus 17, which is 25. So the fraction is going to be 17 over 25. Okay, the next one asks us to work the other way. So we've got green to black counters, and there's that fraction that are black. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. I could write down them as fractions actually, so why don't I try that? So we know that there are 4/7 that are black, and we know that there are only green and black, so there must be 3/7 that are green, because it has to add up to 7 over 7, which is 1. So looking at that, what we can do to both sides, and I can put little lines down here, I can times both sides by 7 to simplify the fraction, to simplify the ratio even. So when I times the left by 7, I get 3, and when I times the right by 7, I get 4. So the ratio of green to black, and be careful that you have it in the same order, so we needed to have green then black, is 3 to 4. And make sure that it's in simplest form, which it is. Okay, so we're asked to find the length marked x. So it's a trapezium, so it has one pair of parallel sides, and to work out what the area is, we add together both the bases, which are the two parallel sides. We halve it, and then we times that by the height. Now the height is the thing that connects both the bases at right angles. So I'm going to write all that down. So we're going to do half of x plus 1.7. I'm going to times it by the height, which is 2.7. That'll give us the area. Now we're told what the area is. It says the area is 4.05. So this becomes a solving question. So I'm going to put my lines down on the equals. Now on the left hand side, let's have a think what I can do. Well, I can expand that bracket, so it becomes half x plus, and I can use my calculator here, I'll probably do it in my head, 0.85, and we're going to times that by 2.7, so we're going to expand it again by timesing both of them by 2.7, so 0.5 times 2.7 is 1.35 x plus 0.85 times 2.7, which is 2.295. We should put the equals in here, because I've not done anything to the right hand side yet. So I'm going to take away the 2.295 from both sides to get the x on its own. So 4.05, take away 2.295, and it gives me 1.755. Let's extend my lines a little bit. And we divide by the 1.35 to get x on its own. So divide by 1.35, and it gives me the answer of 1.3. Now there's different ways of doing that. I could have divided both sides by 2.7 and then times both sides by 2 at the start, and that would have also worked, and then taken away the 1.7. Probably would have been easier, but I thought this might have been easier to show, but it's up to you, as long as you get the answer 1.3. Now I can check that, so I'm going to do 0.5 times brackets 1.3 plus 1.7, close brackets, times 2.7, and it gives me the answer of 4.05, so I know it's correct. So we're given quite a basic diagram. We're given a pair of parallel lines and we're given two angles from them. And angles on parallel lines, there are four things you should be thinking about. So the first one is corresponding, those are F angles. The next one is alternate, which are Z angles. The next one has loads of names. It's co-interior, interior, allied, whichever your teacher says. And the last one is vertically opposite. Now, vertically opposite occur in other places as well, not just parallel lines, but that's normally the one that you will be using. So let's have a look. Well, what letter does that make? So if I draw out from the parallel lines, I always say it's the armpits of the letter. So if it's a Z, it's the armpits of the Z. And if it's an F, it's the armpits of the F. Well, this is like an upside down backwards F. So we know that upside down backwards F, any F angles are going to be the same. So I know that's 62 degrees. Now we've got to give a reason. So the reason is corresponding. Now I always got corresponding and alternate mixed up. So I don't know whether this will help you, but I always think corresponding and alternate. Please don't spell it that way, but I just literally bung the letter into the word and I've never got them muddled up since, so that might help you. The other one, the C angle, are not equal, so these ones here are not equal. They add up to 180 degrees. So just be careful with that. The rule of thumb is if you're guessing and they look the same, even if it says it's not drawn to scale, if they look the same, then if you have no other memory of what they're likely to be, if you forget about angles on parallel lines, just write down the same angle. If the one's acute and one's obtuse, just take it away from 180 degrees and maybe you'll get some marks. But hopefully you'll remember the corresponding alternate, co-interior or interior or allied, and vertically opposite. Okay, so there are quite a few different ways of doing this question. One way I'm going to show you now, the fact that £1 equals, not very good at drawing euros, 2.23 euros, and we need to get it equal to 2,676, and so we've got to work out how do you get from here to here. Now, the way of doing that is 2676 divided by 2.23, and all on the calculator. So we know we've got to times that by 1,200, which is what the calculator told me when I did 2676 divided by 2.23. Now I can check that by typing 2.23 times 1200, and it gives me 2,676. So if that works that side, it has to be able to work this side as well. So I'm going to times this side by 1,200, which is quite obvious. 1 times 1,200 is going to be 1,200, and that's going to be my answer, 1,200. Now there's different ways of doing it, different ways of thinking about it. What you can think about is to get from pounds to euros, we times by 2.23. So therefore, to go the other way, we're going to divide by 2.23. and so you just do 2676 divided by 2.23. There's loads of different other ways of doing it. You can do it with ratios as well. Okay, so we're asked to find the midpoint, which is just kind of the halfway point, and we're given two coordinates at the start and end of the line segment. And a really easy way of doing this is you're just finding out the average of the x coordinates and the average of the y coordinates. So to find an average, we're going to do the x coordinates first. You add together the two coordinates, the two x coordinates, and divide by 2, because there's two numbers. So 2 plus minus 1, well, 2 take away 1, because the minus will win against plus and a minus. So 2 take away 1 is 1, and divide by 2 is just going to be 0.5, or just a half. The y's, so here we've got minus 5 plus 2 over 2. Minus 5 plus 2 is minus 3 over 2, which is going to be minus 1.5. So the coordinates are 0.5 minus 1.5. And if you think about it, half is halfway between 2 and minus 1, so that makes sense. And minus 1.5 is halfway between minus 5 and 2. Okay, so we're given a regular polygon, so that's going to be quite an important word there. Regular means that all of the sides, angles, and exterior angles in this polygon are exactly the same. So if I added another one here, this would also be x. If I put another exterior angle here, all the way around this, they're all x. They're all the same, and there's 16 of them in total. Now the one thing we know about exterior angles is they always add up to 360. So to find out what that angle is, we just get 360 and we divide it by 16, because there's 16 identical exterior angles. So I get my calculator out, 360 divided by 16 equals, and it's 22.5. So we can check that. We can do 22.5 times 16, and it has to add up to 360, which it does. So this question says there's a tennis tournament being played where each player plays each other once. And there's multiple ways of doing this. One of the ways is listing out all the different combinations. But this question only asks for how many tennis matches are being played. So you don't need to list them out, and sometimes you will need to list them out. This one you don't. So let's start off with a liar. A liar has 4 people that they're going to play against. William, Paul, Samantha and Christine. William, well, we've already counted a liar's match with William, so William only has 3 left that he can play. Then Paul we've already counted his match with the other 2, so he's only going to play Samantha and Christine, other than his matches we've already counted. Samantha's only got Christine left to play after we counted all the other matches. And Christine's matches have already been counted so far. So we've got the 4 matches a liar's going to play, 3 matches that William's going to play, not counting the one we've already counted from a liar, plus the 2 Paul's going to play, plus the other one that Samantha's going to play. So 4 plus 3 is 7, plus 2 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So in total, there are 10 different matches going to be played. Okay, factorise means put it into brackets. So looking at the first one, there's a t I can divide out of both of them. So I put t on the outside of the bracket, but there's no number because 7 and 5 don't have anything that goes into both of them. So I think, what do I times t by to get to 7t squared? Well, it's going to be 7t. And what do I times t by to get to 5t? Well, it's just going to be 5. You can check your answer by expanding the bracket to check it makes 7t squared plus 5t, which it does. Next one, w is only in the first term, so I can't divide out the w, but there's a number I can divide out of both of those. Now, I could pick 2, but actually 4 is a better number because it says factorise fully, which means I need to take out or divide out the 4 rather than just the 2. So 4 on the outside. What do I times 4 by to get to 12w? Well, 3w. And what do I times 4 by to get to minus 8? It's going to be minus 2. And again, I can expand that to check it. Right, the last one, there's a number and a letter. So I'm thinking the number of 16 and 24 would be 8, and the letter would be A. Okay, so there's two things that we're dividing out this time. So I'm going to have 8A on the outside. So I figure out, what do I times 8 by to get to 24? Well, that's 3. And what do I times A by to get to A squared? Well, that's going to be A. What do I times 8 by to get to 16? 2. And what do I times 2 by to get to 16A? So it's just going to leave it because the A is on the outside of the bracket. So A to A times 2 is 16A, so I don't need an A there. So for this question, we just need to remember the area of a circle. Now the area of a circle is going to be pi r squared. Now that's the area for a full circle, my dodgy circle there, but we only have a quarter of it. Now if you have a look, that length there, the 22 centimeters, is going to be the radius of a full circle if I drew the circle properly. So we know what the radius is, and all we do is we times it by the fraction of the circle we have, which is going to be a quarter. So it's going to be pi times r, which is 22 squared, times a quarter. So I'm going to do that on my calculator. Pi times 22 squared, and then you can press equals and then just divide it by 4. That's the same as timesing it by a quarter. And the answer I get is 380.1327 blah blah blah. And so to two decimal places, that's going to be 380.13. Okay, so we're asked to write 88 as a product of its prime factors. So the first thing to do is write 88, and then we have two shoots coming from it. Now I need to find out which two numbers times together to make 88. Now a little tip, if you've got an even number, always pick 2. So 2 times 44. Now whenever we get to a prime number, we always circle it, because that's finished. So 44, I can get another 2 out of that, we'll divide another 2 out of that, so 2 and 22, 2 and 11. Now 11 is also a prime number, and when you're left with just prime numbers, then you write your answer out like this. Now if you're also asked to write it in index form, that means instead of 2 times 2 times 2, you're going to write 2 to the power of 3 times 11. Now don't work that out, because that will give you 88, so 2 cubed times 11 is 88. For this question, the main thing we need to remember is the triangle. Now the triangle is like the speed, distance, time triangle, but obviously this has nothing to do with speed, distance, time. The formula says that pressure equals force over area. So as long as you've got force on the top, which is measured in newtons, then you're fine, because area and pressure can be the other way around. So if we're asked to find the pressure, so we cover up pressure on the triangle, we cover that up, and it says that it's force divided by area. And it says that the force is 2280 newtons, and the area is 38. So we get our calculator out, 2280 divided by 38, and I get the answer of 60. Now the units, because force is in newtons, and because area is either in meters squared or centimeters squared normally, then the units are newtons per centimeter squared. So it's 60 newtons per centimeter squared. Don't forget, it could be meters squared, newtons per meter squared, and that's absolutely fine for pressure. These questions are just based on a few rules of indices. The first rule says that if you've got two powers with the same base, which these two do because they're both a, you add the powers. Now if you think about it, a squared is a times a to the power of 6 is a times a times a times a times a times a. So in total we're timesing a by itself 8 times. So it's 8a to the power of 8. The next rule says if you've got a power inside the bracket and outside the bracket, you times them together. So it's m to the power of 3 times 6, which which is m to the power of 18. Now this last one's a little bit more complicated, and I'm going to write it out so I've got a bit of a larger one to play with. Okay, first thing I focus on is the number. Now 55 over 11, so I know that 55 divided by 11 is going to be 5. 55 divided by 11, that's all we've got to do. And the reason we can do that is there's only one term at the top and one term at the bottom. Term is defined by, whether there's a plus or a minus, and there's no pluses or minuses here. Okay, so the next one, we've got the r's that we want to divide. So we've got r at the top and an r at the bottom. Now this r at the top is technically r to the power of 1. Now when we do r to the power of 1 divided by r to the power of 8, which I'm going to write out down here so I can show you, you take away the powers. So when you times them, you add the powers. When you divide, you take away the powers. So that's r to the power of minus 7. Okay, now we're left with the s's. And it's the same thing with the s's. This time we're doing s to the power of 15 divided by s to the power of 8. So it's going to be s to the power of 15 take away 8, which is 7. So my answer would be 5 r to the power of minus 7 s to the power of 7. Okay, to convert from standard form, you just write the number down, and this here, the power, will tell you where to go. So if the power is positive, then you go to the right. If it's negative, then you jump to the left. Now since it's negative, we're going to jump to the left, and it's minus 6, so we're going to jump 6 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the decimal point will now be here, and you fill in all of the jumps with zeros. So one of the jumps is used by the 8, but all the other ones we fill in with zeros. And whenever you've got just a decimal point, you need to have something before it, so we put a 0 before it. So the answer will be 0.00000084. That would be the answer. So let's just count. There's 5 zeros and 5 zeros. Okay, to convert to standard form, you write out the number, and you try and put a decimal place in to make the number between 1 and 10, but not including 10. So if I put it in here, that would be 72, so that would not be right. So I need to put it in here. Then you count how many times you had to move the decimal point to get it there. So the decimal point started at the end of the number, and we had to move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so the rule is that the number has to be between 1 and 10, which this one is. Now, if you had a big number, then the power of 10 will be positive. Now here we did have a big number, so it's going to be positive 6. On the previous one, we had a small number, 0.00084. I don't know if I said the amount of noughts that were there, and you can see that the power in the question was negative. So negative power of 10 is really small number, positive power of 10, really big number. This does turn up on the calculator paper as well. So if it does, you can actually just type in question A into your calculator and just write down the number it gives you. Now some calculators are smart and do things in standard form, so you might need to do it this method anyway. Okay, so we're asked to find the length of the line AB, and the way of doing this is you work out how far across you go and how far up you go. And by doing that, you create a right angled triangle. So we go 2 across here, 2 jumps across. And if you don't know that that was 2, let's just do a different method. So to get this other one, 1, 2, 3 jumps up. Or you just know that it goes up to 4, down to 1, 4 take away 1 is 3. So it's a right angled triangle with sides 2 and 3, and we're looking for the third one. Now, the one opposite the right angle is going to be labelled as C. These two, it doesn't matter, I'm going to call that A and that B. We use Pythagoras' formula. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And a is 2, so 2 squared plus 3 squared, because b is 3, equals c squared. Let's put our lines in. So it's going to be 4 plus 9 equals c squared. 13 equals c squared. Square root both sides. And let's get my calculator. So square root of 13 is 3.6055 blah 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 equals c. So it's 2 decimal places, it's 3.61. Now be careful, sometimes it will say that it's done on centimetre square grid, so you might have a units attached. If you want to put units but it doesn't say any, you can just write 3.61 units. Okay, so we have a set of simultaneous equations, and I'm just going to start off by just writing them out to give myself a bit more room, because it's a little bit too small otherwise. So I'm just copying out the question. Now, there's a list of things we need to do for these, and there are different methods. I'm just going to go through the main one. The first thing is I need to get either the x's or the y's the same coefficient, so the number before them needs to be the same, ignoring signs. Now looking at this, and I'm going to label these A and B. Looking at this, if I double A, then the x's would become the same because they both have a coefficient of 4. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to write 2A. So I'm going to double everything in A. So double the 2x to make 4x, to make the x's the same. Double the 5 before the y, so that's 10y now. And double the 24 to make 48. Now next I need to probably, and it's normally the case, if I write down B again it just makes things easier, so I'm just going to literally copy down B underneath. Okay, so next I'm going to remind myself that I'm working downwards now, so I just put little circles around these to remind me I'm going downwards. And I need to look at the sign before the letter that I've made the same coefficient. So I'm looking at the x's and I'm looking at the signs before them. If the signs are the same, we are going to subtract. If the signs are different, we're going to add. And it's that simple. Okay. Now the signs are the same because they're both positive, so we are going to be subtracting. So a minus there, a minus there, and a minus there. Okay, let's start. 4x take away 4x is nothing, which is good because it needs to be nothing. 10y minus 3y. Now 2 minuses make a plus, so that's 10y plus 3y, which would be 13y. And we've got 48 plus, because the 2 minuses make a plus 4, which is going to be 52. I'm going to put my lines in. Okay, next I need to do 52 divided by 13, and we're going to do both of these divided by 13. So we've got y equals, I think it's 4, so 4 times 13 is 52, so yeah, y equals 4. Then I'm going to pick one of the equations from the question and I'm going to substitute the 4 in. I'm just going to pick the top one, so 2x plus 5 times 4, because we know that y is 4, equals 24. And again, put my lines in. So it's 2x plus 20 equals 24. Take away 20 from both sides. 2x equals 4. Divide both sides by 2. Extend my lines a little bit. And x equals 2. Now if you've got time in the exam, you can check that that's right by using the second equation. So 4 times 2 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12, and 8 take away 12 is minus 4, so we know it's correct. So x is 2 and y is 4. Okay, so for the first thing to do with this question is to write it out twice. Whenever you square something, you times it by itself, and itself is the bracket x minus 15. And there are multiple ways of doing the next bit. I'm going to use the grid method for this one, and we put the first bracket at the top, so x minus 15, and the other bracket down the side, which is just x minus 15 as well. And we're timesing, so x times x is x squared, x times minus 15 is minus 15x, x times minus 15 is minus 15x, and then minus 15 times minus 15 is plus 225. Okay, then these two here will add together. So when we write our answer, it's x squared minus 30x plus 225. Now the really common answer to this is people thinking it's x squared plus 225. Okay, and that is wrong. Okay, students do that, and I'll put a big cross through it. Students do that because they don't understand that you're squaring the whole bracket, you're not just squaring the things inside the bracket. Okay, so I'm asked to complete the Venn diagram, and the E at the top I like to think stands for everything. So all of those numbers need to fit somewhere in this Venn diagram. And we're going to put the square numbers on the left and the odd numbers on the right. Now there's different methods of doing this. What I like to do with this type of question is just do it one at a time. So we're going to start off with the 16. Now 16 is a square number, but it's not odd. So I'm going to leave that here. 75. Now 75 is not a square number, but it is odd. So I'm going to put that there. Now 1 is a square number and it's odd, so that's going to go in the middle. 4 is a square number but it's not odd. 28. Now 28 is not a square number and it's not odd, so that's going to go out here. 9 is a square number and it's odd, so that's going to go there. 93 is not a square number but it is odd. And 2 is not a square number or odd. That's going to go on the outside here. And I like to just add them up, find out how many numbers we've got in our Venn diagram. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And find out how many numbers we should have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we haven't missed any, because it's quite easy with this type of question to miss a number out. Okay, so this question, it looks like a standard bearings question, but something you might notice is there's no angles in it. So if there's no angles in it, we need something else, and that something else is going to involve the right angled triangle here. So we can see there's a right angled triangle here, and we know that when we've got right angled triangle, we've got two sides, we can find an angle with trigonometry. I'm going to call this angle x. Now to find x, we need trigonometry, and to do trigonometry, we need to label the sides. So we've got the opposite here, which is opposite the angle we want. We've got the adjacent here, and we've got the hypotenuse here. Well, the hypotenuse is no interest. We're not looking for it, and we're not given it. So it's O and A. So writing SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA. Well, we're not interested in the H, so it's not going to be SO, and it's not going to be Ka, so it's going to be TOA. So TOA stands for tan x equals opposite over adjacent, and the opposite is 47, and the adjacent is 72. Now we want to work out what x is, so to do that we want to inverse tan both sides. Okay, let's just scroll down. Okay, so on the calculator you want to click shift or the equivalent on your calculator and then tan, and then you press the fraction button, 47, and go down, 72. Just don't forget to close the brackets. Every time you click tan or inverse tan, it opens the set brackets. Just make sure you shut them. Let's press equals, and that equals 33.1356, blah blah blah. Okay, let's have a look. So x is 33, but we still haven't got a bearing. What we can do is work out what this one is, and I'm going to call that y. So to work out what y is, it's going to be 33.1. Well, we're looking for nearest whole number, so let's call that 33. And then we're going to add the right angle here. Now, the reason I know this is a right angle here is because it says that he heads west and then south. So I know that both the angle here and the angle here are going to be right angles, because the angle between all four, north, east, south and west, all four directions are going to be right angles. So I'm going to add 90. And you can do this in the calculator, or you can do it in your head. I'm going to do it on the calculator. 123. Okay, now bearings, something that we've got to remember, are always from north going clockwise. So it's always going to be like that. It's going to be that angle there. So to do that, we're going to do 360. We're going to take away the 123 because that's what we don't want. So on the calculator, 360, take away 123, and that's 237. So the answer is 237 degrees. The easiest way to answer this question on the calculator paper is to think in terms of multipliers. Now, multipliers are a nice easy decimal you times something by to do whatever the question's asking you to do. So either increasing it by a percentage or decreasing it by a percentage. So if we ignore the second part of the question, just focus on this bit, 11% off. We always start off with 100%, always, and 11% off would have taken away 11% from that. So that's going to leave us with 89%. Now, 89% is not a multiplier yet. All you need to do is divide it by 100 to make it a decimal. So on your calculator or in your head, divide it by 100 and you get 0.89. And that's a multiplier because all we need to do is put any number in here, we times it by 0.89, and it gives us what the new number is with 11% taken off. But the difference with this question is we're not working this way, we're working this way. So if you have a look at the question, it says the sale price is 917, work out the price of the TV before the sale. So the end price is 917. So instead of timesing it by 0.89, when we're working the other way, we divide it by 0.89. Now I show it this way round because I like to have it in the middle, but we've got to do 917 divided by 0.89. Don't do 0.89 divided by 917, otherwise it won't make sense. So on the calculator, 917 divided by 0.89, and press equals. You might get a fraction, just press S to D, and we get 1030 pounds 34. So I've rounded that to the nearest penny, because the next one along, it's 337, so the 7 pushes that 3 up to a 4. And so that's going to be 1030, so 1030 pounds 34. Let's see if that makes sense. Well, it kind of makes sense that it's gone down a little bit to 917 pounds. So the actual thing makes sense. We'd expect the price before the sale to be higher than the price on the sale. Something you can do to check that it works is you can then times the answer by 0.89, and there we go, we get 917, so it completely makes sense. So this question says there's two triangles that are congruent. Now congruent means exactly the same shape, exactly the same size, exactly the same angles, exactly the same length. Now the important thing to notice is this angle here and this angle here are not the same. However, if you work out what this angle is, well, this is going to be 105 plus 35 and then take that away from 180. So it'd be 180, take away 35 plus 105. Now 35 plus 105 is 140, and so that's going to equal 40. So this angle down here is 40 degrees, which is the same as this angle here, and similarly this angle here is 35 degrees. So these triangles are not the same way up.
and that's going to be important, because if I redraw this left-hand one, I'll just do it roughly. If I redraw it the same way as we're trying to find G, so I'm going to redraw this first one. So if I redraw this first one so it's the same way up, well, this is still going to be 105 degrees. This one here is going to be 40, so I'm going to switch that around. The long one is still going to be 11 meters, and this one down here is going to be the 35 degrees. Okay, the one between the 40 degrees and the 105 degrees is 2 meters. The one between the 35 degrees and the 105 degrees is 3 meters. So therefore G, which is this one here, is going to be 3 meters. Now a really common wrong answer to this is 2 meters, because it's the same as this one. However, you can see that the triangle's not the same way around, so we've flipped it. And be careful, this is exaggerated, because in the exam the triangle, the lengths will look similar, but these are not drawn to scale, so don't just rely on the fact that it looks the same to assume that it is the same.
In this question we're asked to compare two banks, and normally when I'm asked to compare something I just put a line down the middle of the working out, and I put one of them on the left hand side and one of them on the right hand side, and as long as it's identifiable which one is on the left and which one's on the right, you don't need to necessarily put the whole name down, but you can do. So I'm going to start with a super bank. It says we have 2.3% for the first year and 1.8% for all other years, and we're doing this for 2 years at £300. So first of all I want to work out what the multiplier is. Since this is the calculator paper, we use the multiplier method. So we start off with 100% always, and compound interest means we're gaining money, so we're going to go up by 2.3%. So that means we'll have 102.3%. So as a multiplier, what we do is we just divide that percentage by 100 to get it as a decimal into what we call a multiplier, 1.023. So if I times 300 by that, that will tell me what we have after year 1. So let's do that and calculate 300 times 1.023. And you might need to press S to D. And that is £306.90. Okay, so that's year 1, and we might as well just write year 1 somewhere. Okay, so year 2, we've got that £306.90, and we need to work out the multiplier for 1.8. So I could go through the same method as before, but actually when you start using multipliers you realise how to just go straight there. So it's going to be 1.018, but you could do 100 plus 1.8 is 101.8 and then divide that by 100. And what's that going to be? So that equals came out a bit wrong. So what's that going to be? So 306 and times 1.018. And that says it's £312, and I'm going to round this to 42. I'm going to round it to the nearest penny. Okay, so that is super bank. That's how much we'd get. Now the great bank's a bit easier because it's just going to stay at 2.2. So let's work out as a multiplier. 100% plus 2.2% equals 102.2%, and then as a multiplier, that is 1.022 by dividing by 100. So we're going to times that £300 by 1.022. So 300 times 1.022, and I get £306.60. Then I'm going to times that again by 1.022. So times 1.022, and this time I get 313.34. Ooh, actually, that would be 5 if I round it to the nearest penny. Okay, so it says which account will give her the most money? Well, looking at that, it's going to be the super bank. And when you're writing down an answer, make sure you write down the full name. It's not going to be the super bank, it's going to be the Great Bank. Look at that. So Great Bank Inc. And it says by how much. So I'm going to get that by how much. Let's show the examiner what I'm doing. So I'm going to do 313.35, take away 312.42. So 313.35, take away 312.42. And I get the answer of 93p. So £0.93. Now, if you hadn't have rounded both of those, you might get a slightly different answer. And actually, technically, you shouldn't have rounded them until you got the answer. But on a question like this, where you're rounding it to the actual money she would get, they wouldn't pay her half a penny, then either answer would be correct. And in this bit here, you could have done all of this just as one bit. You could just written 300 times 1.022 times 1.022 or times 1.022 squared. That would be absolutely fine because you'll get the same answer. Okay, so we've got an athlete and 2 hurdles, and if he jumps the first one, the probability of him jumping the second one will change. So it's a conditional question, and we're asked what's the probability he will hit one hurdle. Now, one hurdle does not mean 2 hurdles. One hurdle means exactly one hurdle. So you've got to be careful with the question. Okay, so we start here. And if he jumps the first one, then we're looking at him hitting the second one because he has to hit a hurdle. So we're looking at him hitting the second one. If, however, he hits the first one, he can't hit the second one, otherwise we'll end up hitting 2 hurdles, and it says it will hit 1 hurdle, so he has to jump the second one. So he's either going to hit the first one or the second one. Okay, what we need to do next is work out the probabilities he will jump the first one then hit the second one. So we just get the 2 fractions and times them together. So that would be 4/70. No need to cancel at this point. Okay, and let's work out the probability you hit the first one and then jump the second one. So that's 3/7 times 10/13. So that's going to be 30, and then I could do this on the calculator or just do it in my head, over 91. Okay, now we're either going to end up here where he's hit the second one, or here where he's hit the first one. The word or in probability means add. So he's either going to hit the second one, or, which in probability is add, hit the first one. So on the calculator, because this is a calculator question, so it'd be 4/70 plus 30/91. So that's going to be 176/455, and let the calculator do the hard work there. Now, if it's a non-calculator question, generally speaking, the denominators of the fraction are a little bit simpler, and they tend to do those on the independent ones because they can manipulate the denominators a little bit more. Okay, I'm just going to write this out to make it a bit bigger. Now we're asked to make A the subject, which means we want A equals. So I'm going to put my lines down. Now the first thing I need to do is get rid of that square root, because if you look, the right hand side is all trapped in that square root. So what I'm going to do is square both sides. So we've got t squared equals, and when I square the square root, it just gets rid of the square root. Okay, next I need to get rid of that 3, so I'm going to take away 3 from both sides. So we've got t squared minus 3 equals 10a. Then I'm going to get rid of that 10. Now that's a times 10 there, so I need to divide both sides by 10. Now I could divide the t squared by 10 and the 3 by 10, or I can just write it as a fraction, which is a lot easier. So just put the whole thing over 10.
So therefore a equals t squared minus 3 over 10. Now it's really important that if the letters are capitals, we keep them as capitals. If they're lowercase, we keep them as lowercase. It does matter what case the letters are, so if it's uppercase or lowercase.
I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please click like, and if you really enjoyed it, please click subscribe. Also, make sure to check out our website. Our website has a lot more on it, and you can just revise anything you want. Finally, very, very good luck for those of you doing the resits in November, and I hope you get the result you want. Thank you very much.